Yeah. Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's a storm that's called, you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Screams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay away. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to...
Okay, how is everyone doing? Hello, Dystopian Deep Dives. Hello, Ange. Hello, Audrey. Hello, Shefly. Hello, Tammy and Giz. Pats to Gizzy. Hello, Dark Side of the Moon. Taterbug, thank you for moderating, holding down the fort. I appreciate it very much. Happy Monday. How is everyone doing? So, Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Reiner, if you don't know who Rob Reiner is, or was, sadly, they were both murdered in their home this weekend. Rob Reiner was the director of so many hit movies. It's impossible to name them all. I don't know of another director who had as many hits in the time period that he did as Rob Reiner. The Sure Thing, The Princess Bride, Spinal Tap. Gosh, When Harry Met Sally, we just hit movie after hit movie in the 80s and 90s, A Few Good Men. And his wife, Michelle Reiner, was a photographer. He took the picture of Trump on the cover of his Art of a Deal book. And they were both murdered. Their throats slit in their home in Los Angeles. And they were discovered by their daughter, Romy, on Sunday. And I have just been reading everything I can get my hands on about this crime because, as people who've been following my channel know, I grew up as a daughter of a screenwriter and very familiar with the Hollywood dynamics, I guess, of a family that's with a person in Hollywood, or a creative person. My godmother's also an actress. Her daughter's also an actress in the biz, and I grew up around it. So I was very interested to try to figure out, I mean, I think what you try to ask yourself is what went wrong in these kind of stories. How did this happen? And the person who is, not to bury the lead here, but the person that has been accused of this crime and is in custody now on $4 million bond is their son, Nick Reiner, who much is being made of his history of substance abuse, 17 rehabs, which is what's being reported from age 14 on. And what's being reported is he's mostly, his problems was with opiates, but it sounds like from his own interviews that he was a He would just do any drug that he could get his hands on, really. And that they made a movie together, Rob Reiner and his son Nick, written by Nick Reiner and someone he went to rehab with, about his time of homelessness. So there was a time when the parents kicked him out of the home and insisted on tough love, and he was homeless in Maine and many other states. New Jersey, he mentions. So I think he was given the choice to continue using and get out of the home with no resources. This is a kid who never completed high school. And he's the middle child. And his other siblings all seem to be very, or somewhat accomplished, at least stay out of trouble. So they're making a lot of this substance abuse. I would think it would be one, massive problem if it sounded like he never really developed a life of his own. I know he was living in New York for a little while, New York City, but how did this all happen, right? And this gives you this interview this quote really with Rob Reiner gave me a little bit of clue. So I'm going to start out with this part of it, but I think that there's really like a significant part of this story that's not being talked about. So I think everyone wants to talk about the substance use, which is clearly going to be an issue if a child, and he really wasn't a child, he was 32, an adult child is living at home or close to home or close to the parents. Sounds like he was living in the home. That's kind of unclear now from everything I've read. But close enough with the parents that, actually, you know what? I'm going to start off with this. Close enough with the parents that they had a massive fight. They all went to Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. On Saturday night and had a fight here. And so here's the reporting from TMZ about that fight. Take a listen.
Is just sad.
No, I agree, Lauren. And, to your point, they did make a movie together. I was watching interviews that they did, obviously after the tragic incident yesterday and looking into his son, into Nick, and they had the project that they made that I think by accounts was pretty good and well received. They did a lot of interviews together. It seemed like they had a loving relationship. So to consider what might have happened, obviously we're not yet completely sure here, but to consider what might have happened, it's just awful. We were told, and it's relevant to their relationship and where they might have been right now, they went Saturday night to Conan O'Brien's holiday party. It's something he throws every year, and you get a lot of celebrity friends who go over and they have this big party where they all have a nice time. Well, Rob Reiner went this year with his wife, Michelle, but they also brought...
Right. So there's apparently a massive fight that went down and they left. So did this happen when they got home? Did this violence happen?
Nick with them. We have been told that there was a blowout fight at Conan O'Brien's party on Saturday night where it got so bad or so intense that Rob and Michelle left. Unclear if Nick left, but Rob and Michelle left the party because they got into this fight with Nick. And then obviously less than 24 hours later, we know, tragically what happened to them. And now as there is some evidence to...
Right. So everybody knew when this crime happened, everyone pointed to Nick. And I think the most significant story that has come out, and I think it's going to be buried, but I think this is the most significant story that's come out about this tragic crime, is that the neighbors say that this was not the first time that he had committed violence on his parents. That Nick Reiner had a reputation for violence. This was reported by the New York Post, had a reputation for violence. This is the neighbors talking anonymously, and had always been troubled before he allegedly slaughtered dad Rob and mom Michelle, pals. Rob Reiner's son Nick was notorious for being violent, and those around him instantly knew he was the one who allegedly murdered his parents. Now, this is really significant, and I'll show you why in a second. Allegedly murdered his parents, friends and neighbors told the Post on Monday that, quote, "This is not the first time their son has been violent." A longtime neighbor of the victim said of Nick Reiner, 32, who's charged with fatally slitting the throats of his parents in the family's Los Angeles mansion. Quote, "I know of another incident a few years back with Nick, but I won't say more than that," added the man who declined to give his name. "I just never thought it would get to this point." So that was a warning. And there's also self-reported by Nick in the Dopey podcast, which is a podcast about drugs and other dumb S, they say, that Nick, he says in this podcast from, I think it was 2018, that he once destroyed his parents' home during a drug-fueled rage. So he revealed that he once destroyed, this is page 6, same thing, New York Post. Nick Reiner revealed that he once destroyed parents Rob and Michelle's home during a drug-fueled rage. In a 2018 appearance on the Dopey podcast, Nick recalled a time when he became violent while being sequestered in the famed director and actress's guest house while he was high on meth. "I went 10 rounds in my guest house," he shared. So some pictures of him. The closest picture is the one on the thumbnail. That's the newest picture of Nick Reiner, looking much heavier and more menacing. You can see it right there, and there, looking not so youthful and polished. And it's not much of a story. "I got totally spun out on uppers," he says. "I think it was coke and something else, and I was up for days on end," Nick 32 added. "I started punching out some things in my guest house." The screenwriter said his violent fit started with the TV and then went over to the lamp. "Everything in the guest house got wrecked," he recalled. When asked by one of the podcast hosts if Nick punched the TV, "Yeah, I literally punched the TV." So wrecking objects, from my time working at Gavin DeBecker, and especially objects that might represent the people who own them, like the parents here, are significant. So that that was a warning sign to the parents. And it was interesting that he says he was being sequestered in the guest house. Had his behavior gotten so bad that he wasn't allowed in the main house? Just a question. Can't know, because some of the people that would know have been killed. Nick Reiner, allegedly. Nick Reiner could not recall whether or not he lacerated his hand from the television's glass. The Being Charlie writer said that while there was no logic behind his violent outburst, he was pissed that his parents told him he had to go. Nick's 2000, and was that so according to those who were at the Christmas party and those who knew Michelle Reiner, she was complaining that Nick Reiner they were at a crisis point with him and they didn't know what to do with him. And after 17 rehabs and it doesn't take, what are you going to do? So what's more interesting is, at least to me, is this little piece, this little quote here from Rob Reiner, just about his attitude towards the people giving him advice about his son. So, and the whole rehabilitation for substance use. He says, quote, "The program," meaning I think he means AA, NA, and more traditional rehabilitation efforts. The program works for some people, but it can't work for everybody, Rob told the Los Angeles Times in September 2015. Quote, when Nick would tell us that it wasn't working for him, we wouldn't listen. We were desperate. And because the people had diplomas on their wall, we listened to them when we should have been listening to our son. We were so influenced by these people. They would, Michelle added, they would tell us he's a liar, that he was trying to manipulate us, and we believed him. We believed them, meaning we believed the experts. Rob and Michelle were tragically okay. So, in retrospect, you obviously say maybe you should have listened to the experts, but that's a theme that their son knows best about what's best for himself. And the problem when you do tough love is you worry that your son who you love is going to die out there. And I think that was in the fear, is that if we tell him he can't live here, if he can't keep using and abusing us, that he will die out in being homeless. Because here's a guy with no means to make money, no skills, really, no education, and a very famous last name, which is also embarrassing to these people. That, if he's going to say, well, they're also worried that people will look at them and say, well, why do you have a homeless son? What did you do as parents? I was homeless in Maine, he says. I was homeless in New Jersey. I was homeless in Texas. I spent nights on the street. It was not fun. And so there's his 3 siblings, Romy, there's Michelle, and there's his older brother, Jake Reiner. So why I think this is interesting. So when we get into adult children who kill, and mostly there's been a lot of studies on juveniles who kill, and I've done a lot of work with the National Organization of Victims of Juvenile Murderers, and lots of episodes and lots of guest episodes on that subject. My experience into it is that juvenile crimes are some of the most disturbing crimes, and there's a big push by the wrongful conviction movement and sort of I would say the movement that's interested in minimizing sentences of criminals, to push from both parties, from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, to limit the sentences of juvenile killers in state by state. And the problem is if a juvenile gets a life sentence, it means that their crime is so heinous. What I mean by that is that their age is such a mitigating factor. So when you do a crime young, the first impulse of the court is to give you a lower sentence because you lack the maturity. That's the idea behind it, to fully understand the consequences of your crime. So if you do get a life sentence as a juvenile, that means that your crime is so heinous and that they don't have a lot of hope for rehabilitation for you outside of a very highly structured, what do you call a prison? Highly structured, I don't know, environment. So patricides account for about 2% of all homicides. Perpetrators are typically white and middle-class males without a history of prior criminal convictions. And it will be interesting to see if what the neighbor talks about there was a run-in with the police, and if that led to any kind of charge against Nick Reiner. I'm very curious to see if he did have any, besides his run-ins dealing with substances, if he had a larger rap sheet that was filled with other kinds of crimes. The popular literature has presented youths who killed a parent as pro-socials interviews who feared for their lives. So they put people who kill their parent or parents into 3 categories. One is victim of child abuse. who see no other way out or who were threatened. The number 2 category is severe mental illness. So he doesn't fit into, we haven't heard anything about any kind of extreme abuse, nor have we heard about mental illness. So 3, it leaves an antisocial personality, otherwise known as a psychopath or a sociopath. The role of antisocial personality in Parasite has just begun to receive attention. McGinnis has described in great detail the story of a 19-year-old Chris Pritchard who cold-bloodedly planned the murder of his entire family in order to acquire a large inheritance. He was an impulsive, conduct disordered adolescent who abused alcohol and LSD, also abused substances. The famous case of the Menendez brothers who claimed abuse, I would say, by their parents. I wouldn't say there was any proof that they were ever abused by their parents. I don't know why they put that in there, that they were. There's never been any credible evidence of that, but okay. But were shown to have committed for largely for their inheritance. Children who've grown up in dysfunctional homes are at a greater risk. And I would say that I would say that the chances of a dysfunctional home being in Hollywood are maybe greater than other areas. And abused youth may kill for instrumental reasons, but the two are not likely any crime. They talk about needing either needing control or needing to get their way as two really motivating factors in an antisocially motivated crime. And I would say that if all this violence leading up to this leads to me to believe that he's an antisocial personality. But I think what we're going to see, especially when his defense lawyer gets hired, and it'll be curious to see if anyone in the family or friends is going to fund his defense. But I could bet that they're going to try to make him into a victim, as they always do any person that kills their parents. And look at what a good job they did with the Menendez brothers. Now they're writing in this scientific journal that it's a fact when there's really no credible evidence. So I think we're going to see a lot of real emphasis on his mental history, health history, and also antisocial personality has become so unpopular to talk about, largely in favor because there's no cure for it. So they'll talk about post-traumatic stress. They'll talk about bipolar. They'll give it any other name besides the correct name. So here's a fascinating interview between the two of them. I thought this moment was particularly interesting. Let's take a listen.
Together for the two of you. I mean, I have trouble working together with my dad on yard work, let alone, a 2-year movie.
Well, what kind of yard
They're asking what was the most difficult part. I cut off the question a little bit. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
work do you do?
That could be where it lies. I don't like raking,
Well, there you go. You got some negatives going in. What did you think? What was the toughest for you? What do you think, Nick?
It wasn't very tough. I mean, it was a pretty nice experience for me. I don't really think it was tough at all.
Really?
I mean, of course it was a little bit, but.
I mean, we did get into fights over things, but ultimately it forced us to make the film better.
So Nick is covering up the fact that they had fights, but his father's saying, no, we fought. He's saying it was easy. We got along well, and then his father's going, no, we didn't get along well making this. We fought. But it only made the movie better because, of course, they're promoting a movie. They don't want to say we fought like cats and dogs. It was a nightmare. Pretty little interesting moment. Wesley loves Octoberfest, says Cat Door Cash. Hit the like and subscribe. Thank you. Please hit the thumbs up. It really does help. Leave me a comment. Appreciate it. Thank you, Wesley. Always doing the heavy lifting, Wesley. Appreciate it. Tammy and Giz says it's tools for the kitty door. Again, thank you. Like you need a jigsaw, get the Black & Decker. It's great for your smaller jobs and for you. Sad for their family. I am too. Yeah. Very sad. It's just a very sad story altogether. and such a surprising one, because although there was much evidence of his substance abuse, not many stories about his relationship really with the family, besides his issues with substance abuse.
Better. I mean, we get into issues, and I would see, the whole process for me, I can just speak for myself, it did make me understand him a lot more, and I think it made me a better father. Hopefully it did. I don't know, but I think that, and you'll see it in the film, what happens is, your kid, if your kid is going through rough times, the parent your main job is to keep your child safe. So I would do anything. I felt at a loss. So I would do anything that, as we say in the film, anybody with a desk and a diploma, I would listen to them. And the whole idea of tough love and you have to be a certain way. And it's not my nature. It's not the way I am built, but I went and did that, and I think that, at the end of the day, I know my child.
So here is Rob Reiner feeling guilty for having limits. It seemed like there were no limits in this house for this child. I don't know about his siblings, but you cannot you cannot get a diploma from high school. You cannot have a job. You can go out of rehab after rehab after rehab. I mean, what he talks about, I listened to some of his interviews on the Dopey podcast, and he was on more than few episodes of it. And he talks about getting kicked out of one rehab and going right into another one and then leaving that one. I mean, just a real, it seems like my impression is that Nick Reiner knew how to take advantage of Rob Reiner's good nature. And I think he was manipulating them. Like Michelle Reiner says, the experts say he was trying to manipulate us. I was like, sounds about right.
Better than an expert does. And I probably should have trusted my own instinct. And that's one of the things I did learn about the whole experience.
So it's his mistake was creating boundaries and saying you can't be at home. You can't use us and use our money and destroy yourself. Okay.
I think the bonding came not from the story itself, but from the fact that we were working on a movie together, and I could see him I would think, in the form that he could express himself the best, which is making movies, because he has so much experience. And so seeing that sort of turned me around to be like, okay, I should probably...
That's just very telling. He's saying that the way that he can express himself best is as a director in film, not as a dad, not person to person, but through film. And so I thought I could get closer to my dad via this medium of film.
No, sorry, I'm responding.
Oh, I should probably shut up and listen to him, because he knows a lot more about this. He knows I don't know anything, so I'll learn whatever he has to teach me.
I just think that's such a fascinating thing to say, that like your father, who you would always want to be at his best as your father, may be a type of person who's at his best when he's making movies, and that makes him more understandable or relatable as a father to you, which is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, it really clicked for me, because we didn't bond a lot as a kid. Like, he really liked baseball, I liked basketball, and he could watch that with my brother, but baseball. But I just, when I saw him do that, and it was something that I'm interested in, I was like, wow, like, he really knows a lot, and like, it made me feel closer to him and be like, yeah.
You're like, what?
So when I found out that he knew a lot about film, it made me feel closer to him. That just sounds like a nonsense answer. But he said that his grandfather, Carl Reiner, legendary comedian, also a film director, loved the Dodgers, and apparently Rob Reiner continued that tradition and went to many, many baseball games. Like the article I read said like 40 baseball games. But here's Nick Reiner liking basketball. I had also read that he had a podcast about baseball, but I couldn't I couldn't find anything more about that. It was just mentioned in one article. I don't know if it's true or not. Take that with a grain of salt.
Oh, my dad's Rob Reiner.
I never had thought about it, and then
Yeah. It didn't cross your mind, right?
Never.
No.
Never watched A Few Good Men. Didn't see that one.
No. But it's interesting that Nick would talk about it in that way because, yeah, we
You can't forget that your father is in show business. It's all around you. You just can't. You just can't. You're. It's such a different kind of life than your fellow classmates who have a parent who goes to work and works regularly. So I'm sure he was away. I mean, he worked so consistently, and I mean, he was so productive. So I'm sure he was away a lot during his childhood. I mean, he was born in the 90s, which was like the heyday of Rob Reiner's career as a director, at least. He was also an actor in All in the Family, Meathead, another great sitcom. And he has another daughter. When he was married to Lorraine Marshall, he adopted her daughter.
did share that experience, but even though I've had a lot of experience making movies, and I said this to him many, many times, that he was the heart and soul of the film. So when it came to making...
This is a great question. This is another thing I missed. Anna Marie M. She says, does he have any neurodivergent diagnosis? That's another thing they like to do in place of antisocial personality disorder or psychopathy. They'll say he's autistic. We saw that in the Robert Durst trial. He tried to pull that over. It got thrown out. The jury never heard it. So, yeah, I wouldn't think so. But maybe, you get the right psychiatrist, and you can always fool these experts, There have been killers who've gone to psychiatrists and they said he could, I'm thinking couldn't have done it. They can be fooled. These experts can be fooled. Just because they have a degree or they've done it a lot doesn't mean they can't be fooled. Yeah. Or you can have both. Right. Right. I don't know. I see it so often used as an excuse, especially lately. All these things just seem to be in vogue. Autism, bipolar, PTSD, especially PTSD.
The film deeper and better, I would have to really defer to him. I mean, even though I have had all this experience in making films, the core of this film, I really had to look to him. I relied on him for giving it the honesty and the truth that it has. Did
you work with him on set? Were you on set?
Right. And that's a pattern. Like, I let him run the show, right? I let him tell me. And this, it's a pattern of parenting that wasn't popular when I was being parented. I was so shocked when my friends became parents. They were like asking their children what they wanted for dinner. We ate what was put in what the family was eating. And if you didn't like it, you ate it still, or you went hungry. So it just seems like there's a lot of emphasis on how the child's feeling, his experience. I would say almost an overemphasis, so that the power and control is not with the parents, but with the child. But I'm sure it was a struggle at the end. I'm not blaming the parents. I'm not saying this is a result of bad parenting. I'm just trying to understand the dynamic here. Obviously, their parenting was very successful with 2 other children. I just don't know if they ever recognized the source of the trouble here. Hopefully we'll find out as more information comes out. I think if this is a trial, I would think that he would plead out. It sounds like, to my ear, that he admitted to it. This is what I'm thinking, is that he confessed. And now we're unsure what he's been charged with. But I would think it would be in connection with this crime, and I think they're going to have to find more proof that he did this than just his confession. But if this goes to trial, if he fights this and pleads not guilty, I think this will be a very big trial. I would think that he would plead guilty. There is the death penalty in California, but it's really just a joke. It's never utilized. You have better conditions if you're on death row. You get a TV, etc. But I don't know. I would think he would plead out, but who knows? Who knows how this is going to go? I think that right now he's probably just detoxing, I would think, in jail, and it's probably pretty uncomfortable.
For the majority of the shooting?
I was on set with him. Yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
I have no idea what I was going to say.
No, he was there every day. I mean, we worked for a year before, helping craft the script, and then doing the whole shooting, and then post-production, he would come in the cutting room. I mean, we went through it together. There's no question.
I have to ask, you said it's the most personal project that you've ever been a part of, and I think when people watch an hour and a half movie, they can sort of feel the personal aspect from the filmmakers, or that it's a personal project. But as a filmmaker, as you said, it takes a year, it takes 2 years. There are certain objective things that you have to do as a filmmaker that completely remove the personal, and most of filmmaking can be that part of the job. How do you remain personally attached to the project? How do you maintain that sort of little personal spot in your brain when there are so many decisions and so many things you have to do on a day-to-day basis in a project like this that are not personal?
Well, I mean, you do have the craft of being a filmmaker, so you do. There are certain there's certain film grammar that you're going to use to tell a story, but I could never get away from the fact that it's personal because we're doing it together. Every time I look over, that's my son, there's my boy, and so that never goes away, no matter, whatever.
How touching is that? When he says, that's my boy. I remember being at a graduation, and it was a college graduation, and a woman yelled out when a student was getting their diploma, "That's my baby." It's still their baby. It's very touching. Oy.
Craft I have.
This crime, someone mentioned the Menendez brothers, and that was such a financially motivated crime. And it is like the Menendez brothers in that it happened in Hollywood, and the extreme wealth of the family. But it really reminds me a little bit more of Marty Tankleff. If you don't know my episode, that's an episode that took us. I did it with another woman, and it took us 2 years on and off to go through all the transcripts and all the appeals documents, everything we could find on that case. And that's Marty Tankleff said he killed his parents because he wasn't allowed to drive the fancy car. He was made to drive the crummy Lincoln, and he really hated his mother the most. And he knew he was going to get away with it. He knew his conviction was going to be reversed, and he, like Klaus von Bülow, and it was going to be, he'd get rich from it, and he did. Cuomo, when he decided so he got out on a technicality, and when Cuomo decided not to retry him, he said that he should no way be looked at as innocent and deserves no money. But that did not stop Marty Tankleff from suing for millions and winning. It's just it's a kind of like, no one's going to tell me what to do, like power and control. They have too much control over my life. If it weren't for them, I mean, that's what you get from listening to the Dopey podcast, his appearances on it, is that was never interested in sobriety. And even when he wasn't using the harder substances, he was still using what he said was, harm reduction, a lot of other substances, it sounded like to excess. That was my impression. and rationalizing it. And he's, so, I don't know. I mean, it's just such a conundrum for a parent when you have a violent child. You can't have them in the home. You just can't have a violent child in the home. Whatever he did to alert the neighbors to his violence a couple years back, he talked his way out of it, sounds like. So I don't know if they ever recognized how dangerous he was or is.
You know, it's always there.
Nick, how involved were you with the casting and everything? I mean, this kid is amazing in the film. He's an incredible lead. I've never seen him.
People know Nick Robinson.
He was given good.
Yeah, he's a really good actor. I mean, he was in that Kings of Summer, and he's in Jurassic World. He's a great actor, and Nick was there for all the casting. You know, all of the auditions.
I was sitting there, but
yeah, but you always gave your opinion.
I was like, I saw that girl Morgan Saylor on Homeland, and I think during the season she like went to rehab or something, and I was just like, oh, she's a perfect rehab girl.
Yeah,
that was the only.
He pushed for Morgan Saylor like crazy. Yeah.
You had a personal connection to her right away?
No, but
So you have a kid with no experience in the business casting the film because it's supposedly loosely based on his life. It's a lot of power. Again, a lot of power to give a young kid with no experience.
Felt like you knew her.
felt like I knew her from some land.
Yeah.
You know.
And this kid is, I mean, he carries the movie in many ways. He's in every scene of the film, and he's fantastic. How do you know when you're casting someone that they're going to be able to do that? After this long, you know, you've worked with some of the biggest actors of all time, but you're...
One of the other things he talks about on the Dopey podcast is having a full-time interventionist with him all the time. And that didn't stop him from overdosing and having a medical event on a plane on a upper type drug. So, I mean, just incredible. I mean, this family sounds like they gave him every kind of help they could think of.
Asking a relatively unknown kid to carry the weight of a movie like this. How did you know that he was up to the task?
Well, you start with having an idea of who the character is. And in this case, even though it's not Nick, it's certainly an extension of him in certain ways. I have that in the back of my head. I'm looking at an actor, and I want to see if he has the qualities, some of the qualities that I see in Nick in terms of, you know, his honesty and his depth and the way he plays things. And then, to be honest with you, you know, he auditions, and in the case of Nick Robinson, he auditioned with the guy that plays his friend in the movie, Devin Bostic, who plays Adam, and they clicked immediately.
I'm going to skip past the casting, go a little further in. We try to get a little bit more information about the relationship here.
Funny, and it's going to be tragic. I mean, there's some very dark moments in the film, but there's some also really, really funny moments. So the only thing for me, and I always try to, even in Misery, there's laughs, you know, I always try to find ways of getting humor in it. The thing that's different for this is that it's closer to the bone than any of the other films I've done.
So is Misery, closer to the bone.
Closer to the bone, but in a different way.
Yeah. You brought me there. I couldn't help.
I know.
As soon as you said there were laughs in Misery, the ankle immediately appeared in my mind.
Big laugh.
Yeah.
When she breaks his ankle, a laugh, riot.
Is it not that you would ever want to not have comedy in any of your projects, but having grown up in the comedy world, is it difficult for you to not have comedy, to not sort of be obsessed with comedians and stand-up and joke-telling?
Well, I mean, it's in my blood. I mean, it's the way I view life. I mean, I'm not, you know, the way my father is. I mean, he's more of a pure comedian. You know, Nick was saying that the film that he likes best of the ones I did was Stand By Me. And, you know, that makes me feel good because that film was the first film that really reflected my personality more than anything I have done.
Well, isn't that interesting that he said he wasn't aware of his films and he didn't know what he did for, but he loved Stand By Me. Great movie. Again, great movie.
It's, it has a moodiness and a melancholy to it, but it also has laughs and there's fun to it. So that's more my personality. And I always see funny things and also sad things. I try to blend the two if I can.
Nick, what about you? How often do you find yourself having the same sort of comic tenor as your father?
Well, I try to be funny whenever I can, but I don't really know. I don't know what that meant.
Well, when you're working on this script, did you feel like you had to sort of inject humor, or did you sort of find the humor organically?
No, there's so much funny stuff that happens in rehab, and a lot of funny people. Like, it's tragic and all, but the people that are there are not going to want you to throw them a pity party. They're going to want you to laugh at the situation and make light of it.
There's a great scene in it, in the movie when you see it, where the main character, Charlie, is gotten bathroom detail, and he's having to clean the bathroom, and he's with his friend there, and they're working, the two guys in rehab, and they're cleaning the bathroom, and there's a dialogue between the two of them that's hysterical, and it's actually a conversation that Nick had with somebody that he encountered in, and so they put it right in the script.
Yeah, the confusion in that scene is very real, and I sort of got a sense when I watched it, like, this is a real conversation.
Yeah.
I can tell that this conversation
This actually happened to Nick,
somewhere.
and he couldn't figure out what that. I mean, for those of you who haven't seen it, I don't want to give too much of it away, but it's about a guy who gets sexual favors and also scores dope. And
It's a who's on first with heroin and hookers.
the other guy can't figure out, well, what did the guy who's giving you the favors, he's also giving you the dope, what is he getting out of this? And he couldn't figure it out, so it's pretty funny.
Rob, I have to ask, as we said that you're an actor and a director who's also had one foot in politics. After Indiana last night and cases this morning, how are you feeling coming to the end of this year's Republican primary and Democratic primary?
Well, it's probably the most bizarre political cycle I've ever experienced in my life. But I do believe that if America has any sense of anything, we will reject Donald Trump, and we will, because...
Speaking of Donald Trump, so Donald Trump had a reaction that's being criticized, and I'll just put this out there. This is his reaction. A very sad thing happened. So if you don't know, Rob Reiner was also a little bit of I would say much of a political activist. He campaigned with Howard Dean. He raised money for Hillary Clinton. Very much a out and proud Democrat. Worked to reverse the, how do you put it? What is it? The law in California preventing gay marriage, and successfully challenged it, but put a lot of his money where his mouth was. So here's what Donald Trump, and he was very outspoken against Donald Trump. Here's what Donald Trump wrote on social media. A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director. It didn't look like he was struggling too much, did he, guys? But very talented movie director and comedy star has passed away, together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump. So that's Donald Trump talking about himself in the third person. With his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace. So never one to exploit it, never one to miss, to exploit an opportunity there. He's being highly criticized for that. especially those who remarked that on Rob Reiner's very compassionate reaction to Charlie Kirk's assassination. Let me see if I can find that. I wasn't planning on showing it, but now I think maybe it is worth showing. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here we go.
Of Charlie Kirk. What was your immediate gut reaction to it?
Well, horror, absolute horror. And I unfortunately saw the video of it, and it's beyond belief what happened to him, and that should never happen to anybody. I don't care what your political beliefs are. That's not acceptable. That's not a solution to solving problems. And I felt like what his wife said at the service, that the memorial they had, was exactly right. And totally, I believe, I'm Jewish, but I believe in the teachings of Jesus, and I believe in doing to others, and I believe in forgiveness. And what she said to me was beautiful, and absolutely, she forgave his assassin, and I think that is admirable.
You first.
So, quite a compassionate reaction to Charlie Kirk's murder, assassination.
I was saying this today, I said this earlier today, that the only reason anybody pays any attention to this guy is because he's famous. Because if you took just a person, any person, and you had them...
Okay, all right. We're going to move past the politics. I'm bored by it.
Who are the worst part of humanity, they're coming...
Oh, looks like maybe he's still talking about politics. Let's move forward.
They'll have to cover him, but there's ways of covering somebody. If you watch what Chris Matthews did to...
He's still talking about politics. Oh, law. Save me this. Okay. Can we talk about the movie? Oh, they're asked about who their favorite pro wrestler is. And let's see if this woman has a better question.
Real, and I just thought he was the greatest sketch comedian that ever lived.
Absolutely. Next question.
Hey, Nick, thanks for sharing your story. It's really brave. So, and not to discredit your work on movies, but there are so many jobs on sets. And I mean, I didn't even know how many jobs there were at AOL. So what's next for Nick? Were there any jobs or careers that being on set opened up to you?
Nothing's popped up yet, but...
I've never had a job. I think this is his only job his whole life, is writing this film. And then he was on set basically as a consultant on it. It's the only job that I've heard him do or heard him talk about or been written about. And like I said, I've been scouring everything I can find about Nick Reiner, Rob Reiner, Michelle Reiner, and the family dynamics and Nick Reiner's background. The most instructive or telling things that I found are those Dopey podcasts. I encourage everyone to listen to them. Maybe if I do another episode, I can play you some clips. They need to be highly edited because they're all very not suitable for YouTube. That's the best way I can put it. But very telling. He's very open about his lack of motivation to get sober or to even clean up his act. And it just seemed to be what you get from it when you listen to it is just no feeling of responsibility to the people around him, a definite feeling of entitlement and anger. And I think the most telling part of this interview is at the beginning, where Rob Reiner feels so guilty for creating some boundaries and limits. And I think that had to come partially from Nick guilt tripping him. He had it so bad. But being homeless, but all he had to do at that time was say, I'll get help. And he could have been in a, 5-star rehab. So to be fair to the story, he was in very tough rehabs and very cushy rehabs. He's done the gamut in those 17 rehabs that he was in.
We'll see.
Are you writing another project? Are you still writing?
I'm writing a project right now with actually 2 people that are in the movie who are childhood friends from when I was like 5. So,
Wait, who in the movie are childhood friends in the film?
you've never seen them before, but have you seen it?
I've seen the movie. Yeah.
One of them is the kid Dylan, who's known for I don't know.
Oh yeah.
That. We're allowed to talk about it? No.
Yeah, you can talk- yeah, you can talk about that.
Pleasuring.
Oh no, how bad is this going to be? We'll just move
The
forward.
one in the bathroom scene.
Oh right, telling the story. Oh,
So those
cool.
2 guys.
Yeah, the first guy's named Joey Brooks, and he was in the movie The Big Short. He had a very small
Yeah,
part
he
in The
looked
Big
familiar
Short.
to me.
Yeah, and then the other kid is a kid named Zach Grant, who's a terrific actor.
Great. Next question.
Yes, I'm directing this at Rob. I'm a little bit older than the audience, but I come from an Irish background. We have a lot of alcoholics. And so I've always talked to my daughters about our history and worried about them, becoming alcoholics. And I wonder, did you have a conversation with your son or any of your children about your family history, the genetics, addiction, and all of that? Or did you just kind of brush over that? And then I'm also curious what birth order Nick is in.
I'm a middle child.
Yeah, he's a middle child. We have 3. Yeah, he has an older brother and a younger sister. Well, my feeling has always been that whether it's alcohol or drugs or gambling or sex, whatever the thing it is that you are doing to excess is usually based on self-medication, because there's some issues that you have that you're trying to ease the pain of. And so we certainly...
And people with antisocial personality disorder are often known to do drugs just to feel something, because they don't have the full range of emotions. Also, just for thrills, to eliminate boredom. But
they talk about it in those terms, and try to understand why somebody is the way he is and why that person feels the need to make yourself feel better at some point.
so I just think it's highly significant that everybody knew who did this crime. I mean, there's very few crimes that I talk about where everybody knows who did it immediately. And you could put this, you wonder if he had been thinking about doing something like this for a while, but they did have warnings. He had been violent. I mean, you could even talk about this in some kind of elder abuse context. Rob Reiner was 68 when he was killed by his son, allegedly. I mean, the whole family knew he did it. There was no sign of break-in. I mean, you could just look at the mansion. It's like a huge house with a big gate with Christmas wreaths, which I was kind of surprised by, being Rob Reiner being Jewish, but okay. I don't know if he celebrated Christmas or Hanukkah or what, but obviously not a devout Jew. But it would be hard to break into that home and do this. I mean, there's a problem for the defense if he's going to deny that he did this. There's no sign of break-in. Ditto with Marty Tankleff, There's cobwebs over one of the things they talked about in that trial was the cobwebs over the doors. I mean, this, you just couldn't break in. I mean, it's so much security. Billy Crystal and Larry David walked by the home on Sunday night following the news of his murder. Crystal looked like he was about to cry, a neighbor told ABC 7 Los Angeles. So Billy Crystal, who was directed by Rob Reiner in When Harry Met Sally, and obviously Larry David, a friend. So that's what I have for today, guys. It's just I just can't stop thinking about this story. And I think if I could predict anything, I would predict that should he fight these charges and should there be a defense lawyer involved, we're going to hear more and more about his personality, his troubles. They're going to try to make a victim out of him. That's what I think. Just like they did tried to do the Menendez brothers and succeeded. Took them many decades to really put that narrative over. But obviously that's the narrative that sticks, and that's the narrative that I think the American public is in love with. I think it's so hard to understand the antisocial personality mindset that does it just because they enjoy it and enjoy the feeling of power and they want to. It's a much more sellable story and understandable story that he was somehow so troubled and so damaged. I mean, that too, but that meaning like he was a victim of his parents. He was a victim of society. He was a victim of his own, if you want to call this a disease. I think they're going to go with that narrative, but I'll be following it very closely and watching it. Thanks so much. Please support the channel. I can't not do it without you. Venmo, great way to send a donation. Buy me a coffee. Also a great way to support the channel. Patreon, become a patron. Starting at $5 a month, get access to content you won't get anywhere else. I will be back tomorrow at 6 with another episode, and I will see you guys then. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great night, everybody.
Mic check, Roberta strides through the static haze. True crime Gotham where the shadows play their plays. Fraudsters fold when a spotlight beams. Fact-focused queen busting propaganda schemes. Glass shatter lies echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Pulse, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing, she's the anti-fraud light. Hard cash warrior, dissecting state and defense. Twisted innocence, claims breaking pretense. Gotham's truth seeker cuts clean with the blade. Facts in the forefront, no justice gets swayed. Cold facts drip heavy, real talk unfurls. Cracking cases open like oysters with pearls. Innocence gimmicks crumble to dust in the wind. For victims, her creed, justice till the end. Headphones blazing, she drops heavy artillery. Narratives twisted, meet blunt object civility. Roberta got receipts that unravel the ploy. Exposing the lies these fraudsters deploy. Glass shatters lies, echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Pulse, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing, she's the anti-fraud light.